Picture this, it's 2010, it's Christmas morning, you're in middle school, you've made a very detailed Christmas wish list, at the top of which is a pair of tall, brown, camel-colored Uggs. It's time to open presents, so you're searching for the box that looks the right size for Uggs, size 6, tear into it, and you pull out a pair of shoes. They are brown, they are suede, they are fuzzy on the inside, and you turn around and you see that back heel, and you're like, wait, these are not Uggs, these are bear paws, and therefore these are social suicide. This might seem dramatic, but if you were like in middle school or high school from the years of like early 2000s to mid 2010s, you know that like this is how it was. This was the peak era of logo. The coolest kids were walking around with Abercrombie plastered on their chest, or Juicy bedazzled on their butt, or UGG emblazoned on their heels. These branded items translated to social cachet, and if you couldn't afford these things, fine. No one was gonna bully you for wearing nondescript snow boots. However, if you wore some sort of fake UGG variant of the bear paw, emu, Costco variety, you might get some side-eye. So who could have imagined that 13 years later, the girls in fake Uggs walked so dupe culture could run? If you spend any time on TikTok in the past few months, you've probably heard of the term dupe, but if you haven't, it's essentially a cheaper version of an existing name brand product, and they are taking the shopping world by storm.
Okay, I was up super late last night because I just kept finding all these dupes on Amazon, and I just kept ordering because I just kept finding SHEIN, and I'm gonna try I'm gonna show you what I
just got this couch from Ashley Furniture. It's kind of like a cloud couch dupe, and I am absolutely obsessed with it.
People are finding dupes for everything under the sun, from Skims to skincare to Starbucks, and it's even got to the point where there was a TikTok trend mocking the absurdity of dupe culture. You could honestly probably scroll through a TikTok comment section and find someone fervently requesting a dupe for a pair of white socks. While dupes are relatively new to TikTok, they've been around for a while and have been like a staple in the beauty blogging community for years. I watched beauty gurus in the early 2010s, and they would always talk about dupes in relation to makeup. If a MAC lipstick was out of stock, for example, they'd be like, oh, I found this amazing Wet n Wild dupe because it's a relatively similar shade. I never thought much of it because I wasn't terribly into makeup. However, when I started seeing dupes pop up on TikTok as a way to describe things other than makeup, I found it kind of weird. The thing about makeup products is that they can actually be clearly compared by checking ingredients lists and, of course, color and finish. If the products have the same purpose and ingredients and look similar enough, they are, as the word implies, duplicates. While the concept of a dupe was once limited to makeup and skincare, it has now infiltrated all consumer products from fashion to furniture and more. Today, retailers like Zara and SHEIN can create cheaper versions of clothing faster than ever before. And influencers with affiliate links and Amazon storefronts have more incentive than ever to share these dupes with their followers because each purchase translates to commission. So today I want to discuss the consequences of dupe culture, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Let's start with the good, which it's debatable if there is actually anything good about dupe culture, but here are the things that I think could have a positive spin. Firstly, in theory, dupes make good design more accessible. However, I don't think dupes are necessarily the best way to go about it. I kind of like think of, when I think of making design more accessible, I think of like those Target collaborations that they do with famous designers every season, where the designers design a collaboration with Target and kind of make their, high quality, high end design pieces a lot more affordable. So I think like the theory of dupes bringing nice design to the masses is great, but obviously it is not great when it's without the, collaboration and consent of the original designer of said piece. I think another, in theory, good thing about dupe culture is that there is a little bit less emphasis on name brand, which is great for the poor souls of middle schoolers who cannot afford real Uggs. Because now dupes are cool. As someone who was in middle school in the early 2010s and grew up reading The Click during that time, I mean, I can tell you half of that book was just like name dropping designer brands that I had never heard of, but those books like honestly altered my brain chemistry. And for some reason, me with 2 pennies and a Skittle to my name, like became so like brand obsessed and like label obsessed for some reason. And I associated anything that was name brand / designer with being good. I think living in such like a name brand obsessed culture can honestly just like inhibit everyone's creativity, because you think you need to wear X brand to look good or look cool, when in reality, like, there's so many other options out there that you're not even considering just because it isn't, you know, popular or trendy. Also, technically a positive aspect of this proliferation of dupes, well, positive for designer brands, is that like knockoffs and dupes actually still really promote brand recognition for the brands that are being duped, like Gucci or Hermes or whatever. If only truly rich people wore designer clothes and there was like, say there was like not a world in which we consumed media about rich people every single day, like how else would we know that those things exist, and how else would those luxury brands have sort of an aspirational quality to them if no one, the sort of middle class, working class people were aspiring to purchase those things. It also reminds me of like, I saw this TikTok that basically explained that a lot of luxury brands create like smaller, slightly affordable products as a way to introduce new consumers into, you know, their base, with selling things like wallets and keychains and lanyards that still have their branding but are on the more affordable side of their product offering. So people who, you know, really can't afford to buy a huge bag, they kind of feel like included in the world of that luxury and feel like they get a little taste of it with a keychain or a wallet or a luggage tag. For the last positive thing of dupe culture, I don't necessarily know that this is a positive, and kind of just like more of an observation, is that the word dupe itself is much less semantically charged than knockoff or counterfeit. There's a pride that comes with finding a dupe because you found a bargain and you found a deal, and it's not the same badge of honor that people are going to wear when they're carrying around a fake bag. So I think it is pretty interesting that dupe has a relatively positive connotation when it is essentially a variant of knockoff or counterfeit, which has very negative connotation. So I guess that's a more literal positive quality of dupe culture. Okay, so let's discuss the bad of dupe culture. What first comes to mind is that smaller independent designers lose a lot more from getting duped. I feel like on TikTok there has been very specific items of clothing that have sort of gone viral because they're just like super cute and well designed, like the Selkie dresses, that strawberry print dress, House of Sunny stuff, Mirror Palais dresses, all these pretty small independent brands, like just creating beautiful pieces that happen to go viral on TikTok, and everyone's in the comment section like, where's this from? And then they say where it's from and they're like, oh my god, this is $400, like where's the dupe? And then someone finds the dupe from SHEIN or Amazon and a bunch of people buy that. It's hard to say if they're actually like losing customers who would buy those things. Would those people actually spend $400 on their product versus maybe like $40 on something that is lower quality from a store like Shein. No matter how quantifiable the loss is, there is definitely a loss for those designers by getting their designs stolen or duped. You know, it's kind of like when you say something really funny in a large group and no one else hears it except for one person, and they steal exactly what you said but say it louder, and then everyone else laughs. Like, you can't measure, you can't quantify how much that hurts, but it's a loss. And in addition, like, these smaller independent designers usually have much smaller staffs that are paid pretty fairly usually, compared to the larger corporations that may knock them off. They are made in factories where working conditions are probably not great, and they're probably not really even well documented, so people don't really know how great they are unless you happen to go on that Shein influencer factory tour. Maybe you know something I don't. While I did mention that in theory dupes make good design more accessible, I think the flip side to that is that the proliferation of dupe culture has, cultivated a sense of entitlement among us, that we deserve to have nice things at unreasonably nice prices. I feel like in comment sections of someone showing off a really nice piece where people are asking, where'd you get that from? If it happens to be like really expensive, people are clawing and searching for dupes because they feel like they have a right to wear the same thing at a much cheaper price point. And of course, they're not considering why the thing is at a much cheaper price point. And this leads me to what I would call the ugly part of dupe culture, I think, which is just like its overall impact on our decision making and thought process as like consumers, and really sort of like shaping the mindset that we have when we're like purchasing things. And I think it's proliferating this idea that trendy new things are not luxuries but necessities, because in the land of dupes, they are at the price point of necessities. This inevitably leads to more and more consumption and more waste that the planet simply cannot handle. I think the discussion of dupe culture inevitably leads to the question of, moralizing consumption, and the question of there's no ethical consumption under capitalism, but, at what point must we as consumers, take responsibility for what we are buying? I've said this before in my other videos, but I definitely believe that the blame and the regulation should really start with the companies that are producing this stuff. But if the companies aren't going to do anything, if regulatory agencies aren't going to do anything, I think we as consumers, of course, have to look at the mirror at some points and ask ourselves if we really need to be ordering $1,000 worth of Shein dupes every season. The answer to that is probably no. Our system is set up in such a way that the consumer is so far removed from the production of the things that we wear. It seems absurd that clicking purchase on an online order has some sort of moral implication, but I do think that it's important that we as consumers think more consciously and in terms of longevity when we are making purchases. And that's not to say that you should only buy things that are super expensive or claim to be ethically made or secondhand. I think it's still possible to shop fast fashion in a way that is not contributing to like the immense turnover of clothing in landfills. Can I honestly say anything I bought from Forever 21 in high school is still in my closet? No, but like if I buy things from those type of stores now, I do really try to think in terms of like, am I going to like this for the next few years to come? Do I have other things to wear this with? Or is this simply an impulse purchase based on a micro trend that will be over in like 2 weeks? And if you want to make impulse purchases based on micro trends that will be over in 2 weeks, it's great to do that with secondhand clothing. When I was thinking about this concept of dupe culture, I was also reminded of the fact that dupes sort of seem to be like a symptom of the media landscape we live in, where everything is a sequel or a prequel or a spin-off, and we don't see as much new original IP as we once did. So I don't know, I just thought that was like kind of an interesting cinematic parallel. Are we as a culture losing originality? Here's the thing, I don't think originality is like actually a thing. I think everything that is original is a combination of different things that are already existing, but they're just put together in a unique, never before seen way, and that's sort of what constitutes originality. It's like a quilt, and you're just arranging things in a way that they have not been arranged before, or you're viewing it from a perspective that hasn't been viewed before. I think it's really cool when you can sort of like trace the family tree of a piece of clothing and be like, oh, the color was inspired by this runway show, and at the time everyone was doing big ass bows and blah blah blah. Like, you know what I mean? Like kind of like tracing the inspirations, and you can see how something sort of new was created versus imitation, which of course reminds me of the iconic Miranda Priestly cerulean rant from The Devil Wears Prada.
Here. It's a tough call. They're so different.
Inspiration over imitation just provides for a much more interesting, like, stylistic experience when getting dressed and when going out in the world and seeing what people are wearing, and even, you know, scrolling through the internet and seeing what people are wearing and being inspired rather than just trying to copy and paste. So those are my thoughts on dupe culture. I'm definitely not perfect. I know I have a dupe in my closet. I didn't even know it was a dupe at first, but like, I know it's a dupe. But yeah, I think it's like a really interesting phenomenon to discuss, and I hope it is a cultural trend that we can sort of move past, because I don't know, not everyone needs to be wearing the same thing. Anyway, I would love to hear your thoughts on dupe culture below, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!